If not, I'll just kick it off of this and we'll.
Hey, it says live now.
Testing. Are we live?
Yep, looks like
we are on the internet.
Sweet. Okay, cool. All right, it looks like it's all working here.
Now it's just us looking concerned at our screens.
Trying to use all the new Zoom settings and scheduling Facebook Lives. Hey, we're getting Zach Fowler. All right, we're live. Cool. Thanks for watching, Zach. All right, well, thanks again, everybody, for hopping on another demo reel review panel. This is part 2. You guys did a great job, submitted a ton of stuff last time. We weren't able to get through it all. And heads up, we're not going to get through it all again this time, but we're going to do our best. And so I did actually go through and watch through some of them. We're going to kind of move around through the different ones that we have that were submitted. And feel free to submit one, even if you're just now joining. If we have extra time, we'll be hitting up some more of them. But also, let's see, update. We've got Evan Bourcier on the call with us. Are you there, Evan? Uh-oh, Evan looks frozen. Okay, well, I'm John Clay Burnett, and my partner in Motion University, Andrew Bartlett. We both also have our respective production companies and make promo videos and corporate work and nonprofit stuff. And we usually, or last time we had Jesse Oxford on. Unfortunately, at the last minute, he had to step out. He had some other thing he had to get to. So there's Evan. Evan's back.
Yeah, I don't know. Zoom, of course, crashed the minute we started.
Oh, no. We were just doing introductions for those who didn't watch the first one. If you do want to go back and rewatch the video, there should be a link in the event page, which eventually this will be really old. And we will likely upload these directly to the Motion University video page, or there'll be comments. I don't know. Look in wherever this is posted, look below. We'll have stuff posted in links or descriptions. We'll have the links to both of them. If you missed one, you can catch the other one. Anyway, so Evan, hey, welcome.
Oh, hey. Back. I am back.
Cool. So we're going to, last time we started off with some introductory notes on demo reels. If you want those, you can watch the previous part 1. We're going to jump right into this one and get to as many of these as possible. And Andrew is going to be queuing these up for us. Did you happen to get that list, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm just loading those up right now so that I have them. So give me 1 second. I had to go back to the other event page to go grab some of those.
Yeah, most of them are in that previous event page. We had a ton of folks sharing and commenting and posting their stuff. So,
sorry, 1 second. Part 2. We have. They should make event pages so let like the posts show up first. I feel like because
instead of the about, yeah,
it's always like the about information, which really is nothing there.
Right.
Okay. All right. I've got a bunch of these open here. Let me go ahead.
We're going to start with Josh Nesmith.
Yep. I got that one going here.
That's his name. Forgive me if I said that wrong.
All right. I'm going to share my screen.
So his notes, some folks we have notes. If you're watching and you submitted a reel, please go back to where you submitted the reel and answer the questions. It'll help us provide some information. So quick notes here. He says, this reel is primarily music video work, which is my target client. Music videos and ads are the kind of projects I want more of. I freelance direct and DP for a few music management companies, film companies, and agencies who assign me to clients that want stylized ads. Thanks again. So primarily music video work on this one.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right, here we go. Audio should be going.
Cool.
So this one,
yeah,
this
you go
one
ahead.
had some varied styles and had an interesting closing. Curious to get your thoughts on that, Evan.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the first thing I would say is that like overall, it's definitely visually super strong. I love a lot of this work. There's a lot of great shots. I think all this opening stuff is really good. There's one shot in particular that struck me as odd that's coming up here in a second, which is it's just like an out of focus shot of people in a field. I think it's in like the next three or four. Yeah, this. This was the only shot that I was like, there's so much visually compelling stuff, and this one just doesn't have a payoff for me. Of like, I was waiting for the like cut to a reveal or something, and at least when it flew by, I was just like, it's just nothing. So it's like compared to everything else, that was the one shot that felt a little bit like a quote unquote shot of nothing to me. So that's the one shot that I would be inclined to like swap out. Otherwise, I think that there's a lot of really strong stuff. I like the aspect ratios. I like the variety of styles. There's some really good camera movement in here, which I think is something that I always look for and try to convey myself. But anytime you can see someone who's obviously doing stuff that isn't just all like easy rig work too, or handheld stuff, I think that's a good sign. So whether this is gimbal stuff or Steadicam stuff or whatever else, there's a lot of really good movement.
Oh
Really
no!
like
There you
would
go.
say that I don't even have like a super. Oh, did you lose me?
Yeah, it cut out
Okay,
there
I
for
think
just a second.
okay, sorry. But yeah, I think the only other thing, and I don't really know how you avoid it totally in something like this, is sort of the lip flap thing of just like when you see people singing a lot who and it's not the song you're singing, I think it can be a little bit distracting, but it does like come with the nature of putting stringing together a bunch of different music videos, aside from if you just sort of try to go to performance stuff that has a little less active singing in it. But that's like a little thing. I go back and forth on it. I've had people say in my reel, there's even a few little like clips that involve people's mouths moving, and it's like two clips and it doesn't really take me out of it. So I guess I'm willing to accept that. And it didn't super bother me in this reel either. But that was the only thing that I was like, I would love to see more. Like the visuals are really strong. I didn't feel like the times people were singing generally were super high selling points to me, but if I were a label, maybe they would be.
Right. What do you think of the ending that kind of does a distorted grunge out type thing? Is that interesting for video music type stuff, or is this a stylistic choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of like data moshy stuff has gotten a little bit trendy in music videos. There was what was the big the Travis Scott Sicko Mode video with Drake did a ton of like crazy data moshing stuff and
Okay.
was really big. So I feel like it's definitely like an in thing to do right now. I feel like there are probably maybe better examples of it or better ways. Like this first VFX shot I think is really cool and felt really intentional. I think, you know, part of it is that I'm watching it on a stream, but I had a brief moment of like, is this intentional or is this a glitch in the stream?
For a second, I was like, oh shoot, like I'm gonna lose it. Yeah.
But I think so that would be my only thought is like if there's I don't think the effect is bad. I think that there's probably a way to do it that reads a little more as an effect and as like a cool transition, where to me in this particular part it was like, oh, I see what you're going for, but it's not as strong a use of effects as some of the other stuff. And you're like, this shot's super cool with the purple guitarist, but the data moshing thing isn't like, it's not totally out of left field to me, but it's not as strong as some of the other stuff. I like the closing on the door closing too. I always like a little bit of like, if you can slip some narrative into what you're doing. But overall, I think it's really strong.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I liked that he's working towards music video, and it just felt very strongly themed that way.
Right.
And I thought that was a really good move. Yeah. Cool. Fantastic. All right.
I like that it's short too. You know, right? Big credit for like the 60 seconds on the money thing. I think that's valuable, and it sort of says everything you needed to say. It doesn't get too long. It doesn't feel too short, but it's just sort of in that sweet spot of like, I feel like I've seen everything I need to see, and you've got some really strong work.
Yeah. Works great as a reel. Yep. Perfect. Next up, we have Brandon Kaufman, and he has on this one. There's some. This one has more titles and text and logo usage. So we can check this one out and get some thoughts on that one. Here's what he had to say. I've helped small and multi-million-dollar companies all across the USA and Canada with video production. I do projects start to finish, but also specialize in editing, cinematography, color correction, focus on mainly video commercials and promos, but also would not mind getting into feature film editing.
Wait, can you read the specialization thing again?
Editing, cinematography, and color correction.
Interesting. That's always one of those, like, what do you not specialize in at that point? Like, you sort of umbrella 99% of what goes into making something, but that's a conversation for another day.
And this one's 90 seconds as well, which is great.
All right, here we go.
Cool. Okay, so quick thoughts. I mean, I think overall this definitely to me fits into the niche of like showcasing how you make a production like company reel different than like a DP reel. So the last reel felt very like director DP heavy to me. This is definitely to me more of like you're trying to speak to clients, and I think it does a good job of talking to clients and sort of hitting on those like value props that clients care about and those sorts of things. I like the idea of sort of like having some titles on screen showcasing what you're doing. Do you mind playing it in the background while we're talking, Andrew? I just reminding myself as we go. I mean, I think that some of this stuff up front, the like really industrial stuff, isn't as compelling as some of the later stuff. So I would maybe swap that out a little bit. Showcasing drone stuff is obviously a thing people value now. I feel like those two particular shots are a little bit like on the overexposed clippy side, but maybe that's just my taste showing. But even like that next quick transition shot are all sort of exposed a little more for the sky, and so those drone shots felt a little out of place to me. This one when this client stories title first pops up on the wide of the guy, I felt like it was hard to read, just sort of where it's placed. And I know that it's all sort of consistent, but I would maybe look for a different interview shot or like punch in and reframe that one, slide it down a little so the text is over the darker part or something, because it plays well on the next two shots, I think. But just as far as that being where it pops out, like you can read it great there. But when it initially popped out in the other one, it didn't feel as strong to me. I mean, overall, I think it moves well. It says what it's trying to say. The back half, there were honestly, and this comes back to maybe more my personal preference, just in the way that I like to talk about what I do. There were a few things that were a little bit cringy to me, which is like I get really sensitive to the award-winning thing just because I think it's something that everyone says that doesn't mean anything, honestly. I think we've all won some sort of award, and we all know that if you go back and watch that piece, it probably wasn't anything that special. And maybe it was good in what was submitted. And that's not really a dig at the person or their work. It's just to say that, like, to say award winning doesn't mean anything. If you're not going to say what you specifically won and how it's significant, then it's probably like, it's like when a narrative film's like, we won Uncle Bob's Backyard Film Festival. And it's like, well, good for you, against what? So that's just something that, like, to me, I think years of experience is a stronger thing than award winning personally, just because award winning is sort of a throwaway phrase to me personally. And then, compelling editing, color correction. I think that stuff's fine. I don't know that most people really are really wondering, but do they do color correction? That's something that I feel like you could maybe get away with. And then the other one was just we've done work for multi-million-dollar companies. It's one of those, to me, again, just in my personal ways of talking about what I do, it's a little bit after that. Yeah. It's a little bit of a weird flex thing to throw in there. I get the, hey, we're legitimate. Hey, we've done this for people. But if you're not going to put up a client list, it's again, just a very vague thing to me. That's it's not saying we've worked for these agencies or these clients. And it might be this milk farm that we did work for makes $1 million. And it's that's cool, I guess, but that doesn't necessarily actually speak to your work in a way that is a strong value proposition to me. So if someone's we've done a work for a multi-million-dollar company, to me, I'm not oh, that's a really strong thing. Where if they were these are the industries we've worked in or something, and show a breadth of industries, that's still a specific thing that I can be oh, they've done farm stuff, they've done pharmaceutical stuff, they've done industrial stuff. Whereas just multi-million-dollar companies is one of those I guess that's cool, but it doesn't really to me at least say much. Again, it's sort of award winning, where it's it's an easy thing to say that doesn't actually say much. But overall, I think there's some strong visuals in there. I think industrial purple and green stuff from the beginning. But overall, I think it does what it needs to do, and it does a pretty good job. I also, the one other little thing was, I don't like that it's not done when it's done. The music is still going. I was the music, stretch this out to where the music stops or something, because it just bothers me that there's still music going, but there's no visuals.
Oh, I see. You're saying have the music end when the footage ends, and then just run your titles and stuff after it over silence.
Right.
I gotcha.
Or at least by the time you're at this copyright thing, it should be dead. Maybe when the phone number goes up, it ends, but it's there's still significant music tail going on after all the titles are over. And I'm do I click off? Do I not? Is there a post-credit scene I'm waiting for?
Yeah. One note I had, and this is maybe a personal preference as well, but on the color correction section, I've done some color reel things too. To me, it was a little hard to see the difference, and to use a wipe effect or something could be a little bit of a stronger denoting of what's before and after, as opposed to the fade. That's just
that shot's just weird to me, honestly. And again, this is totally a personal thing, but it's color grading is one thing, but if you're going to say color correction and then turn everything purple, it's a little weird to me. That it's are you matching things to each other, or are you doing these really artistic looks on stuff, which maybe that is what you're doing. But that was just another one that I was it doesn't super sell me on wanting you to grade my stuff when I don't know the project and I don't know the context of why everything just turned purple and blurred out. But it just it's a lot, whereas just taking something that's awkwardly cool and has weird skin tones and shifting it to normal might be a better sell of what you're doing.
Right. And it may not be something that has to be called out. I mean, well, he did say he wants to specialize in color correction, and so that may be, but again, I wonder if this does come down to different reels for specific skill sets in that sense. If you wanted to just show some color correction things, you could show it in this, but to call it out may not be as helpful in a production reel type of scenario. But.
The other thing I'll just mention really quick, and this again could be personal. I always tend to feel a little bit. I guess I don't know how I feel the footage that looks like it was shot on your vacation. It just is obvious. There's not a whole lot of client scenarios that I've ever really seen that these kinds of footage. I mean, there is obviously, but it feels like it was shot on a vacation or something, and it wasn't really actual client work. Especially, I think I noticed most when it said multi-million-dollar companies, and it was over the shot of from vacation or something. It just felt a little mismatched, I think, just with that. So I feel the other stuff that he has is stronger. It feels it's kind of more consistent, and then the nature stuff didn't quite mesh. Yeah, unless it's I guess maybe if it was in context with setting a location or something for some of this stuff.
I totally agree with what you're saying too. Is like even that like multi-million dollar clients thing would play better if it were like logo or something, like there was some sort of like, or just people with branding, like it's people with Walmart shirts, it's people with, but yeah, just to like to put that over a shot of someone on the beach, I'm just like, I don't, this is maybe harsh, but I almost want to be like, I don't believe you, or I don't know, like there's nothing selling that right now to me, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you're going to say that, then I think you have to put something to back it up, or convince me why it matters. Because again, I think we've all seen really poor work done for companies that make a lot of money. And so at the end of the day, like the fact that you've worked for someone that makes a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean that the work's good, and vice versa. Like the fact that you've never worked for Pepsi or Coke doesn't mean that you don't do really great work. And so I think it's easy to sort of like try to connect those things. But I think most intelligent clients know that that's not all that it's chalked up to be necessarily.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess the other thing, just one note, I think from people were talking about on the last reel, like it felt a little weird having like one wedding shot.
Yeah.
Reel, especially when you're talking like multi-million dollar companies, it kind of like scales it down to like wedding stuff. So that was just my other thought. Maybe having a separate reel for wedding stuff would be, if weddings, I don't know, did he mention weddings as being something they were focusing on? I don't think so. So it might not be a bad idea, unless this was meaning like color correction, because it was kind of in that section.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't
having a wipe or something to make that obvious might be helpful. But
I think it comes back to that, like at the end of the day, the trap of like trying to catch every piece of the pie, you know, and like, and at a certain point, like if you're look, there's a value to showing a lot of skills, but it's always interesting to me when you see people who are like throw out the concept of like specialization when they talk about themselves, but then are also like, I got to show that I can do weddings and corporates and feature films and color correction. And like, that's not, to most people watching this, like it's sort of this like, okay, you're like the Walmart of production companies, you know, like you have a little bit of everything and none of it's great. And so if you can really say, okay, like we want to be a post place, like we're going to focus on color grading and editing, then like make a really strong color grading and editing reel, and don't talk so much about drone stuffs and yada yada, like focus in on something. But I think anytime you get into this world of like, we have to slip a wedding shot in there, and we have to throw 2 shots about our color grading, and we have to throw 2 shots about this and this and this and this and this, you get to the point where you're like, I didn't have any really strong takeaways from that. Like it didn't really sell me on anything. It was just sort of like, look, we exist and can do stuff. But it wasn't like, this is who we are. This is what we're really good at. This is our voice. And I think that's something that like for me in my reel, at least, it's like, obviously I'm like trying to showcase a variety of projects and stuff, but I still want you to have a really good sense at the end of it of like, this is what I'm really good at. You're not going to see a lot of things that I'm not really good at and that I'm sort of stretching for. And, you know, I'm not, and this is a helpful thing for people to understand. Like, I don't put everything that I do in my reel. Like I do a lot of things, and maybe everyone doesn't know that like some people who you look up to and say, oh, like their reel is really good, like they also still do direct to client stuff, or they also will still show up and shoot talking heads, or they'll do editing work or color work on the side or whatever. But like your reel is your place to really put forward like, this is what I do well and this is what I want to do. And I think sometimes it's very tempting to feel like, oh, this is sort of my chance to cast as wide a net as I can for potential work. And I think that that's just not necessarily true, that you can be relatively specific and granular with your reel and still get a lot of requests. That like, I still get emailed about weddings. I haven't done a wedding in like 6 years and people still ask me about them. Like if you didn't have that shot in there, people would still ask you about weddings, believe me. And so like, it's okay to sort of go a little narrow band with what you're trying to put out on your reel side. And maybe you do all these other things, and maybe they're even on your website or whatever else, but like to try and be a little specific and like, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is what I'm really good at. And the other stuff will come.
I've heard it said specialize externally, generalize internally.
It's a good call.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Cool. Let's hop on to the next one here. So this one's listed Eli McGowan, but the guy who posted it is Joseph. I think Eli maybe is a part of his middle name or something here. So he says he's DP'd. My focus is mainly narrative, focused on dramatic narrative work. Well, this one's a little bit longer. This is 3 minutes. So we're gonna cut this one short at 90 seconds. You can kind of see there, Andrew, when it gets to the guy in the rocks.
Yep.
The music definitely leads more moody drama. I think he made that comment after some of our last notes last week. The song comes from one of his favorite films of 2019 for cinematography. This reel is a bit more on composition than movement because I think it's a particularly strong area. Hopefully still enough movement. Real quick though, Evan, what are your thoughts on sourcing music? Can we use music from films? And I went and looked it up. This is a feature film from last year. Do we need to use royalty-free stock music, composed music, or can we, for these purposes, give us your legal advice?
Oh man, so I am not a lawyer and I will not give legal advice. What I am, I guess here's what I would say. At the end of the day, it's a reel is like an advertisement for yourself. And if someone were to come to you and say, hey, I really want to do this video showcasing what I do, can I use like the Avatar trailer music? We would probably tell them no. Because it's like, no, one, it's tacky, two, it's legally sketchy. Like there's a lot of stuff that can come with that. The other side of that is for a lot of us, our reels are pretty under the radar compared to even a lot of the and to me, that puts it in a little bit more of a gray area of like, if a church wants to do a video to play on a Sunday morning and they want to do like a skit and use a song from a movie, I'd probably be like, you're probably okay. Like at the end of the day, the movie studio isn't going to sue a church, you know? And if your reel is going to get watched by 200 people, is the label going to come after you? Probably not. I believe it's Joe Simon who has talked publicly about he used to not license music and had a wedding video go viral and ended up with like a 5-figure settlement on his hands because of it. So that is the like worst case scenario sort of situation of like, is it worth saving $100 on licensing to, risk a $50,000, I don't know what it actually was, lawsuit? I would say no. I will also say that a lot of my reels have used unlicensed music. And so that's sort of the like middle world I find myself in. I'm not totally in defense of it. I find that it's probably, realistically, it's the kind of thing that you probably should license. And I think there are probably good platforms for doing that. My personal lazy, honest answer is that the music that I tend to really like for my reels tends to not exist on licensing platforms, and or the stuff that I like on licensing platforms tends to be used by a million other people. So I have tended to try and find stuff from like smaller artists who I like and have some like indirect connection with, than to just like go out for some big thing. Because the other thing is, honestly, at this point, you have to find something that you can sneak past all the filters that are out there. Like it won't let you put it on Instagram. It won't let you do whatever else if it's like some major label thing. If you find some like indie musician or some like SoundCloud, DJ remix or whatever, like there's some stuff that you can get away with. If you have the ability to reach out to the person, I think that's always the best option. And so, yeah, all that to say, I'm not a lawyer. I think you probably should license it, but technically in my mind as a non-lawyer, it also falls into this gray area of like, it's sort of a personal project. No one's paying for it. No one's getting paid for it. So like, I'm not getting hired to make a reel. So is it really a commercial work? I don't know. At the end of the day, purpose. Again, not a lawyer, but that's sort of my long-winded way of saying that I think it's always good to license stuff. And there's so many platforms now. I actually just recently signed up for one. It's like audio, but with like 3 I's or something. It's like audio. I've been getting ads for them, but they had it's sort of like an Artlist music bed type thing, but they were offering $200 for unlimited lifetime licensing. And I was like, I mean, I'll throw a bet in that bucket any day. I'll do 3 projects, and then if anything else comes out of it, we'll call it a day. I remember when like Music Bed was the only option, and every single project was like $100 to $800 just for music. And now you have all these subscription platforms, and I think we're getting spoiled by it, that we're still like, licensing's hard. And it's like, dude, it used to be a lot harder. Anyway, that's a tangent. Yeah. I'll just call it there.
Yeah. No, I think those are good thoughts. It is a gray area. Licensing is safer and clearly on the legal side. And so there's that. All right, let's jump into this and get 90 seconds in and get some
like maybe a difference would be if it's like a production company reel. I feel like you really should license it, because it's like even like if it's like a personal cinematographer reel, maybe that's more of a gray area. But I think especially like a production company or something, because essentially that's an ad for your company that they're going to hire you based on. So to me, that feels like a different story. But
no, I think that's actually a very good distinction. And I think too, at a certain point, it's like if you are presenting yourself as a company, presenting yourself to other companies, it's also one of those, like, you're potentially gonna have to lie in your own bed at some point when they're like, when your client's like, well, you use this song, why can't we use this song? And you're like, well, because I'm special. And they're like, no, you're not. So I different, like, it's different for me being me, putting out a thing that's just me, like, it's not quite the same as if I were like, this is my production company and we have a staff and this is our reel, so I think if you're just sort of doing like a DP reel or whatever else, that is a slightly different thing. I don't know that lawyers would see it that way, but in my mind, I think that's a good distinction to make.
Right, for sure. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and I'll let this play here to about 90 seconds. So it looks like about that. Okay.
Hey, yeah. If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear flowers in your hair. If you come to San Francisco, you're gonna meet some gentle people there. Gentle people there. Gentle people will be a loving there.
Cool. So I mean, I guess the thoughts I would hit. Actually, do you mind muting it and just continue to play it while I talk, Andrew? Just because I'm curious what else happens in here, but I can get into some thoughts. Some immediate thoughts. I think you have stuff for more than one reel is my like immediate thought, is like, because at first I was like, oh, this is like a narrative reel, and then it sort of kicked into this like more corporate world, and I was like, these are both strong enough, but they just, I don't know, the back and forth doesn't really play for me as much as if it were like just make two separate things out of it, and maybe go, hey, this is more of my narrative reel, because there's a lot of like narrative, whether some of it comes from music videos or if it's all like shorts or features, I don't know, but there's a lot of really cool narrative stuff in here that I think could play on its own. But then there's a lot of other stuff that, to me, honestly, like when you put it next to each other, like some of the narrative stuff feels high production value, and then the more like documentary corporate stuff feels sort of cheap next to it. Whereas I think if you just put all the corporate stuff sort of on its own, it would sort of be able to stand on its own, but you can't really go back and forth from like a scripted blocked thing to just like a locked off shot of a couple walking on a beach and not have the couple on the beach feel just like sort of stock footagey. So overall, I think I'm disconnected.
We can still hear you, but your video stopped. Oh, or at least we did hear him. Oh no, we lost him.
Are you there? I'll jump in while we're waiting on Evan to come back. it felt a little, from a narrative cinematography type standpoint, I'd love to see more connected shots. It felt a little more in the vein of kind of like a production reel where a lot of different pieces from a lot of different projects. And I can see some of the connecting shots come up later, but if I'm looking at a reel for even a DP, I'd love to see, are they good at just making one shot, or do they understand how to connect shots and make stories and feelings and emotions happen? And it just felt a little back and forth instead of pushing into moments for me, which you don't have to put them all together, but having sets of 2 or 3 shots together can really build some more emotion. And I think from a narrative standpoint, people would gravitate to those feelings. Like, again, this girl with her hand up, was also walking, and I don't get time to connect to her. I'm just seeing lots and lots of different shots, which may say I can light a lot of different stuff, but it doesn't show story ability. All right. Looks like we got Evan back. So anyway, I was just jumping in on it felt a little disjointed to me, just chopping between a lot of things. And I'd love to see some more moments, especially from a narrative reel. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's there are some strong individual moments. And I think it could be powerful whether to put a few more sequences together or to put similar moments together, but it does just sort of like jump around a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think overall it could probably be, you'd probably get 2 really strong like 1 minute to like 1 minute 15-second reels and probably cut like 30 seconds of the weakest stuff out of here. Right. There's some stuff like the shot of the girl swimming in the bridge doesn't do a whole ton for me. There's some other early stuff that just felt a little bit on the like flat and desaturated side, like really close to the beginning, I think, compared to some of the other stuff. And so I think like, let's see, it's coming up here. Like, this is cool. And I think the vibe, I think the music actually plays, like I sort of bought into it. But yeah, there's just a lot of these sort of like slow pans. Like, this shot doesn't do a whole lot for me. There's just, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be looking at. It doesn't really say a whole ton to me. I'm sure in the context of a story, it's more valuable. But even like this shot to me is sort of like, I don't know, in a narrative reel in the right place, it might play. But to me, this whole opening sequence was just a little bit disjointed. I think that shot of the 2 guys at the fence is strong. I think that shot of the girl sort of by the fountain even is strong. Like, this stuff has a good like narrative sense to it. But yeah, I think it just sort of jumps around a lot. Like, that shot of a girl looking down doesn't really do a lot for me. There's a lot of just like stuff that's not connected to anything. And like, that shot of that guy's great. That to me is something that's very easy for like a client to look at and go, oh, put our employee in there and this makes sense. Like, this is a shot that would get used in something. And so I don't know that it needs as much other context, but I think still, if you were to like cut a corporate reel and mix that in with other stuff, it could be strong. And on the narrative side, some of the stuff together would be strong. But right now it's just sort of 3 minutes of a lot of jumping around individual shots, some of which are really strong, some of which are just okay. Like, this shot of the girl shimmying along the bridge to me didn't really do a whole lot for me. Because again, it's just like your eye sort of doesn't know where to go. Like, this is a cool composition both of these are cool compositions, but there's not a lot going on and there's not a lot sort of pulling you through the piece. So I would just sort of say that like, you obviously have a lot of strong work, maybe split it into 2 reels, maybe try to be really intentional about building an arc within the piece and sort of connecting things and telling a little bit of a story in it. And you could have 2 strong reels, but right now it's just sort of a lot going on and not a lot to focus on.
Right. I would also, as you put those reels together, I would look at making the color grades a little more synergistic, whatever. I'm making up words now, but
that's a word.
Match a little better across. Some of them, when these cut back and forth, come from really high contrast to a really flat contrast. There's nothing wrong with it necessarily, but back to back, it's very jarring and kind of pull you out of it. So you just might look at tweaking some things across to kind of help the reel flow from that perspective.
Another quick thing that I kept noticing is that it felt like it kept cutting before you. It's like you want to see the person's face, and it would like cut right before it. So like even this shot, it's like you see it, and it's like it's almost like for some reason I wanted to like see the person's face. Maybe that wasn't in the film, but and then like I think it was this shot here. It's like we see her start to climb, and like just before it would, like she would look up, it cut like. some of those moments where it just felt like the clip could be good, but it was like the wrong piece of the clip, like just extending it one way or the other.
It's like it's creating tension by like not giving you the payoffs, but then there's never a payoff. Like you can sometimes do that in a sequence where then there's like you're going to hit a big moment with music or something and there's a payoff, but there's just a lot of these little clips that like don't land anywhere and then nothing lands anywhere, and the whole time you're just like, when am I going to see something? Like there has to be like no one's facing me, no one's doing anything, no one's looking like it, and that tension is a valuable storytelling tool, but as a thing to just hold people in for the first 90 seconds of a reel, to me it just made me feel sort of like awkward and not really like, yeah, this is sick, I really want to work with this guy,
Perfect.
Cool.
Awesome.
I want to give a quick shout out to everybody in the comments. We got a lot of folks having some conversation and chatting. Jordan Rousseau's in here, Sean Tyler, Lawrence McAlpine, hey man, Josh Nethmus showed up, Josh Mangrum, Joseph McGowan, hey man, thanks for submitting the reel. Anyway, thanks for the comments and the feedback. Thanks for being on for the live. Let's hop over to Olivia Van Kempen. That's my best shot at that one. This is listed as an editor reel, which kind of drew my eye as we're doing different styles of reels.
Yeah.
So this one seems pretty straightforward. I want to do short films and music videos, would like to branch into documentaries. So this is specifically towards an editing specialization.
Perfect.
To be a hero. You want to be a champion. Let me tell you, people don't want champions. They want to eat cheeseburgers, play lotto, watch television.
Hey, how did you get like this? I want to know.
It wasn't one thing, I can tell you that.
Is this for real? In our bathroom. What else you think?
Look, babe, I was gonna tell you. I was.
Oh yeah, when was that gonna be?
I don't know. I was just waiting for the right moment.
But right after you found out it was positive. How about that moment?
I just didn't know what you would think, and I didn't want you to overreact. Say something.
You didn't do it. You didn't do it. You didn't do it. No one did it. You need to be around for the rhythms and rhymes. Rhythms and rhymes, brothers in time. Remember, lemons and lemons.
This one's over 2 minutes, so maybe we'll go ahead and stop that one there. We kind of got a flavor, or you can turn it down and just go ahead and keep playing it. But Evan, some initial thoughts from editing?
Yeah, I mean, editing reels are tough, and I will admit to not having had to overly like think about this too much in the past. But my quick sort of gut thoughts would be, my like initial reaction to the first like 20 seconds was sort of like, oh gosh, they're going to show every trick up their sleeve in the first 30 seconds of this. Like, this is going to be the like, look, I know how to do all the things reel. Because I think initially, if you go back to the beginning, it hits just like, there's a lot of like transition-y, tricky editor-y stuff going on. That it's like, look, she's gone and she's back and she's gone again. And then it's like a hidden wipe and there's all these little like tricky things like this. I don't know, it doesn't do a whole lot for me. Like, I guess it's cool that you know how to do that. It's not something that for myself I've ever found a ton of need to do. It's one of those like to me it's one of those things that's like, for me, what I'd be looking for in an editing reel is for someone to be able to put sequences together really well and maybe some ability to do cool, flashy stuff. But for the most part, it's like your ability to interpret footage that's handed to you and turn it into something that makes sense. And so I actually like where like the dialogue scenes start coming in and stuff, because to me that shows an ability to sort of like move through different blocking and sort of put it together in a way that plays. I think and this is another tough thing. I feel like, to me, I would have loved to just see some like better cinematography in there that was being edited. Like I feel like I sort of kept having to remind myself that like this isn't about the actual visuals so much as it is the editing. But I felt a little bit like, I feel like this person's a good editor who has, you know, could use some higher level stuff, you know, and that just sort of is what it is. And there's only so much you can do about that. But that was one thing that I was just like, this feels like a lot of very low budget short films that have been cut together well, but even little stuff like that argument between them, it's just like the acting isn't super strong, the audio is going in and out a little bit, and like I think they did a really good job putting it together, and this conversation as well, like I think it's cut together really well, but it just, yeah, it all sort of falls into that boat. And if that's where you're at and that's the work you're doing, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But that's probably the biggest thing that I would be like, what can I do? You know, can I like reach out to some other people who I look up to who maybe have like a short personal project and like offer to cut it for them or something, just to have some like stronger stuff to work with. And yeah, I think that's something that like for myself, I've found to be really valuable at different stages in my reel, whether it's like figuring out ways to work with crews and stuff to then have better visuals for my DP reel. But if I were an editor, I'd be like this stuff looks great. It's just the little difference of like the footage being better makes me feel so much stronger about it. And so if I were this person, I would probably be like, okay, I've shown that I can cut stuff, do like basic editing. I really want to focus on narrative and music videos because there seems to be a lot of like narrative work in here. My goal for 2020 is to like reach out to directors and DPs and be like, hey, I want to cut your short. Find people who you know are going to come back with pretty stuff, and like you can really level your reel up at that point. Because I think that's sort of the biggest thing. Like overall, otherwise, from a real perspective as an editor, like I feel like this covers most of what I'd like to see, aside from I think some of the stuff up front might have been a little bit tacky. And I think there would maybe be a better way to start the VO. I actually initially, when the VO came in, didn't know if someone had left their mic open or something. Like it didn't feel like it really fit to me. And then it reveals that it's part of the conversation. And then the other ones felt good, but that like initial buy into the VO, I feel like we needed to like start on that scene and then have them start talking. Whereas like just having him talk behind the like close-ups of people's eyes wasn't as compelling to me. It just felt a little disconnected. But overall, you know, I think there's a lot of good moments here. There's a lot of like, if I was shooting a short, I would be very comfortable like asking this person to cut that short. So I think it probably is good for where you're at. I think the next step is really just like trying to find some good people to collaborate with.
Again, because I do a lot of editing myself, I'm looking for moments and feeling, and I don't know if they're disconnected, but there's one where the guy has the gun pulled and then he falls, and then it cuts to another shot of the similar type of motion. I don't know if those are supposed to be connected, but to me, I like little moments where you're taking footage that may be from different projects, putting them together to make new moments and new scenes, and it's kind of a visual flow, and you're starting to create arc in that, and I like that. So if you don't have a lot of stuff to work with, I think you can strengthen what you do have by doing those types of creative things that aren't super gimmicky, but you're showing that you're seeing things that are symmetry. You're able to look at footage and find things that match and can go together. That's really attractive from an editing perspective. I don't know that you need the color grading wipe stuff, especially if you're selling more specifically to an editing reel. I don't know that you need the color stuff, or designate that you do both. The other would be, I felt like some of the upfront stuff with the kid in the flower and the girl in the white room, there's just a lot of that in the front. I think you could maybe sprinkle some stuff around, vary it, and then come back to some of that at the end, or use that as a bunch of the same type of movements or motions at the end. Then we see kind of like accomplished at the end of all the things we've seen or something like that. But it kind of started to feel like I was watching the same 3 projects for a while, and then there was more variety later. So anyway, you might look at it kind of varying that some more if you're recrafting. I felt like, I kind of already saw this one. I'd like to see a different project or a different moment. It didn't feel like it was pushing anything forward. It was just a lot of more of the same. So
yeah, anyway. It's funny because rewatching it just now, I feel like that first shot of the girl in the white room is actually a color grade wipe that I thought was like a VFX thing the first time. Like I think it's a punch up of the same shot, but it read to me initially as like some sort of like almost like a Clorox commercial or something. And I was like, oh, look at, and then it wasn't until seeing the rest of the reel and coming back to that, I was like, oh, this is another color grade thing. But because we weren't talking about color grading and I wasn't thinking about it, and it came after this other sort of VFX-y stuff, that I thought it was like some sort of a commercial color effect-y type thing.
Yeah. Cool. Again, the more you can make people feel and pull into characters and stuff, which is tricky because you're working with footage that's not meant to go together. I understand, but that's where the magic starts to happen, is when you start making connections between that type of footage. Cool. Thank you for submitting and sending the reel in. Good work. Let's move on to, we're going to hop up a few in the list here to one that's a lifestyle reel. And I didn't get any notes back from this person. This is Nathaniel Regier, maybe. Can you give us a quick, what's a lifestyle reel, Evan?
I mean, I would probably have to see it to totally nail it, but my guess would be that it's probably like brand filmy B-roll of like people doing stuff that's not necessarily like super corporate, super commercial. Like that'd be my guess, is that it's sort of like a branded content mini docs of people who do things, whether they're a surfer, a woodworker, or whatever. But a lot of these sort of like people focused 2 to 3 minute brand film type things. That would be my best guess of what that would contain.
Okay, cool. Let's take a look at it and
cool. There we go.
Hop in. Yep.
But I know it's me, I know it's me, I know it's me. You gonna make me turn back, way back to the oldest me. Guarantee that you notice me. You don't walk on my soul from sleep. You gonna make me turn back, way back to the oldest me. Guarantee that you notice me. You don't walk on my soul from sleep. Yeah, you got me like cross me. Yeah, you got me like cross me. It was only one me you could know, and this is my only me.
That was sick. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that ended up coming off more of like a trick question for Evan to see if he knew what was coming, and that wasn't the intention on asking about a lifestyle reel ahead of time. But yeah, no, that was yep, you nailed it.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a little more music and sports heavy than maybe I expected for being called a lifestyle reel, but I don't know that it super matters. I don't know that the name of it super matters. Overall, like I thought it was sick. I really like the style, and I think there's sort of a variety of looks here. It flows well, you know, it shows different kinds of movement. I think as like a DP reel, it's super strong. The shot of like the girl in bed and then it turns into the push-up shot was one of the coolest things that I've seen in like a while. I was just like, that is so sick. Yeah, it's in like the middle, I think. Yeah, it's right there. Especially with the music. That's just such a sick like match cut. So I think that's a great example of like sneaking in those little moments that show that like even if you're not an editor, you're still involved in sort of creating visuals that can create those sorts of moments. So I think that was really cool. You know, I think overall like the grades are different, but they all feel sort of like appropriate for the projects they're in. I think I'm always curious, like it's a little tough watching a stream, but it seemed like there might have been some like actual film stuff mixed in there, which is obviously very in right now. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think it was cool. I think maybe, I mean, it all has a look and a vibe. And so that's like, I think it's very targeted in a smart way. And I don't want to sort of like go against the specialization thing. I would love to see a little bit of like people who aren't musicians or athletes in it would be maybe my only thing that I was like, if I was trying to sort of like, if it were my reel and I was like, what do I really want to show? I would probably want to showcase a little bit of that, but maybe you don't need it because that stuff's all like, if you can make the rest of this look good, you can make that look good. But I think there's a lot of these sorts of things that can involve like normal people doing normal stuff and making that visually interesting is sometimes a bigger challenge than like people doing sick plyometric workout stuff on a beach. Like it's not that this looks better than a lot of people who try to make it look good, which, it's not like free good looking stuff, but it's a lot easier to make that look good than like a mom making breakfast for her kids, which are like, I specifically had to do this series of Walmart things that was like, it was all stuff like that. It was like, we need someone to like Walmart employee to be like delivering pickup groceries to the back of a car, and we need these people to be having breakfast and then to like order stuff from their phone. There's so much content now that is sort of like so mundane in a way, but still making that visually interesting. And I think that's something that, at least for myself, when I'm trying to put out there, it's like I want to showcase that variety, that like I can put this much style on something that simple, that it doesn't just have to be like crazy frenetic, and I love the energy, I love the look, but that's sort of the only thing for me that I was like, I would love to see a little bit more of that sort of thing.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I thought it was very cohesive, blended really well, and wasn't too long. So I'm going to give shout out to someone who came in under 60 seconds and just a really strong ending.
Yeah,
just that kind of punch, it says a lot. It makes you feel like you feel it. And artists that can make you feel, that's what we're looking for. So.
Yeah, I was sad. I wanted it to keep going, which is a good sign.
Perfect.
I was like, I need to go
for.
find these projects now and rip references.
Yeah. Totally. All right, let's sneak in one more here. We're getting close to time. Let's hit up, let's see. Let's do Sean Tyler's. I got some notes back on him. Let's see. Freelance cinematographer, worked for a small production company for a couple of years. Went freelance. Love to align myself with positive brands. Kind of likes the outdoor lifestyle. Loves the run and gun of documentary and positive messages.
Cool. There we go.
Some trouble there.
It feels
Andrew.
when your work starts skipping and it's like, so I'm gonna let it load. There we go.
Cool. I dig it. I mean, I feel like it opens really strong. I really like this sequence. The kid reminds me of the kid from the Little Rascals movie. That was like the newer Little Rascals movie. But the thing I love about this sequence the most actually is that wide shot from outside, because that's like the shot that no one takes the time to get. That's like so sick. This just like frame in a frame. Like,
yep.
I would almost like the shot of it turning on is great, but I don't know. I would almost like open or end with that shot. Like I get what you're trying to do with like the projector coming on and then like the transition through the flare into the other shot. But like, that's just such a good shot that I think that that's something that, and that's, to me, it's one of those things that like, whenever I see shots like that in pieces, it's like the kind of thing that I'm always like, I wish I was better about thinking of stuff like that when we're shooting sequences like this, because it's so easy to be like wide, medium, tight, but like live inside the room you're in. And I think showing an ability to think sort of outside of that is actually something that's really valuable, because there are a lot of people who don't. And so I think that shot is really cool. And the minute I saw that, I was like, this is really sick. I think that like the stuff that comes after it is solid. it's very like stylistically different. And so I don't know, like if maybe I would switch the order of stuff to sort of like make that transition play a little easier, to where like the more hikey stuff would get pushed later, because then there's some other stuff with like the kayakers and stuff even connects visually and tonally more to that opening thing to me than like the girl that's very like sort of beauty whatnot. But overall, like I like the way things are sequenced. I think that like there's a good flow to it. I like sort of this like following and pulling sequence. The bike shot from behind was the one shot. This one that I was like, it's either just like a little too saturated compared to everything else or whatever else, but like it just sort of stood out to me as feeling a little like a lot of this stuff feels solid, and that's sort of GoPro-y to me. And you know, it is what it is, but I think maybe color grading or swapping that shot to just to make everything flow a little better would be good. I like that like graduation commercially stuff. We've said it a million times, mixed feelings about mixing in weddings. Overall, you know, I think the like adventure sports stuff is cool. I think you're definitely sort of showcasing towards this demographic of athletic stuff, REI, ESPN, you know, whatever it would be. So I think that that's a good place to live. The food stuff doesn't do a whole ton for me compared to more of the athletic stuff. Little soundbite being mixed in. I think that like mixing in some more sound design throughout would be a good idea. But overall, you know, I think as sort of like a sports and outdoor reel, it's pretty strong, and it showcases a visual of a variety of styles. And to me, it also showcases sort of like a variety of production levels, which I think can be helpful, because it shows to me that you can do stuff that's maybe a little more stylized, has a little bit more of a crew, is a little bit more of a production, but you can also do the stuff that's like, hey, we have to go follow this person out in the middle of nowhere for a week. And realistically, we do get asked to do both of those things. And so if you can make doc stuff still look good, but people can tell that it's good looking doc stuff, I think that's a valuable thing. So yeah, overall, you know, I think the rest of it plays to me. There weren't any other like super big standout things for me. Overall, I like the arc of it. It wasn't too long. I like the callback to the farm at the end. Like,
Yep.
Overall, I dig it.
Yeah, I thought they had some really nice matched moments, whether it's the way people are walking, whether it's similar framing, similar moves. Those things just really help a reel flow. I do feel like you could probably cut 10 to 15%, just pull that bottom level out, and it would really push the rest of it forward and feel more cohesive in a strong sense. There was, like, for example, towards the end, Andrew, there was right before that. So there was like a shot here of the guy's feet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That was a little later, I think. Or did I just...
There it is. Like that one, like this shot here of him hopping up and down doing the move, like looked and matched a little better with the overall style. Just the feet didn't seem to blend in as well. So anyway, it's just little things like that of trying to help the whole piece feel a little more cohesive. Would really strengthen some of those other moments. I love the sound design stuff as well. Just even a few moments are great and kind of popped, and it worked in the way that you did it. And yeah, some really, to use Evan's word, some strong stuff.
Yeah. I invented that actually. Strong. Yeah. Evan Bourcier 2020.
That's right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up with that. We still had even others in our list, but thank you guys for joining live. Thanks for submitting reels. Keep working on reels. Feel free to go through. We have stuff on the original event. We have stuff submitted on the new event. Watch them, give folks feedback. Other people that didn't submit, friends of yours, get together, make some community online during this time, and encourage each other, and keep doing great stuff. Thanks, Evan, for joining in.
Man. I do want to just real quick on that note, actually, since we did the last one, the one thing that I did to my reel also is I ended up getting some sound design added to it. And I think it does really make a big difference. It's something that I would recommend to anyone, even if it's a DP reel, honestly, it can still just sort of help tie stuff together. And the guy who did mine is Aaron Newberry, Newberry. And so I just wanted to throw his name out there because he does awesome work. So if anyone's looking to talk to someone about getting their reel done, just a little bit of a punch up, he was awesome. And I would highly recommend him.
Sweet. Thanks. Good shout out. Thank you guys. We're going to call it this one. Take care.
Peace.